Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? This is episode 10, and today we got Jesi Stracham to come on the show. Listen to Jesi tell her story about how she became paralyzed in 2015 and then how she responded, and the response is impressive to say the least.
5.5 years ago, I was shot multiple times, and I was diagnosed with a spinal cord injury. Well, at that moment, I didn't know how drastic my life was about to change. And it didn't change for the worse, but it changed for the better.
Actually, I was talking with my palliative care doctor today, and she turned around to me and she looked at me and she was like, do you think that if you keep on doing all these things that we don't expect you to be able to complete, that you'll eventually beat this? And I was blown away by a doctor asking me that question. And I was sort of like, actually, yeah, that's probably what I'm trying to do.
Well, I know what my body's going to do to me. I've got a wheelchair in my future, but you know what I've been looking for?
What's that?
One with off-road wheels.
No, nothing will ever take away the pain of my daughter not being here. She will be 18 next month, and it still feels like maybe 5 years ago, 2 years ago that she died. That's my reality.
If you could go back to that day, February 18, 1990, and change what happened, my honest answer is I wouldn't change it, because if I didn't get hurt that day, I wouldn't be in front of that school. I wouldn't be in front of the schools in the upcoming weeks, or I wouldn't be talking with you, or I wouldn't be at Children's Hospital on staff there. This was just my journey, and it's given me an opportunity to have a profound impact on a lot of people and inspire and change lives.
You can expect life to kick you in the teeth and knock you on the floor, but you always get back up no matter what, and you just keep going.
Living Adaptive with Scott Davidson, a podcast about learning to live adaptively. And now, Scott Davidson.
All right, welcome back, people. We have another awesome episode. This is episode 10 with Jesi Stracham. We'll go into that more in a few moments, but first, a reminder, you can find us on www.livingadaptive.com. Head there now if you can. Don't do it while you're driving, but if you're at work, you have my permission to go ahead and stop working, fire up the Google machine, and head to www.livingadaptive.com. While there, you can fill out a short survey about how you adapted to an issue, what you did to adapt, what you learned from going through this issue or living with this issue, and what this issue taught you about life. We can't interview everyone, people, so damn it, get over there and fill it out. Your surveys help others. So we're going to share those surveys as we go forward, and you might have some really good input that somebody could take away and utilize. Anyways, so we got Jesi Stracham on, and some of you listeners probably already encountered Jesi. Jesi is all over the place. She's everywhere. She's been on a ton of TV shows like the Today Show, Destination Polaris, and has her own video series called Wheel With Me. Catchy name, right? And so many other media outlets. Jesi went through some serious shit, and she's still relatively very young. She has an interesting perspective on her situation and life. Just so you know, Jesi was riding on the back of a motorcycle on January 18th, 2015, when a car pulled out in front of the motorcycle. Jesi clearly remembers much of the accident up to the impact. She had surgery 2 days after the accident, and the surgery lasted for a little over 7 hours. And the doctors were confident that they did everything they could to help Jesi recover. Jesi is now paralyzed from the waist down. And I want to mention that at the time of her surgery, she was only the second patient in a clinical trial for an in vivo neuroscaffold. And this is a small device about the size of a grain of rice. And this was placed where her spinal cord was injured. The idea was that this scaffold will bridge the gap in the spinal cord where the injury occurred, letting the fluid to flow again and to regain control over the parts of the body that Jesi lost control over. And Jesi thinks the scaffolding is working, which is great news. And she has regained some feeling of movement since the accident. That's pretty exciting information for spinal cord injury sufferers. Also, just to dive into Jesi a little bit more about her life, Jesi is super active. She is at the head of a nonprofit called Wheel With Me Foundation, and you can find that foundation at www.wheelwithmefoundation.org. She is also an adaptive athlete and a member of the Team UXC Polaris Factory Racing GNCC 820, where she races in a custom-built machine with hand controls. She's super active. She's currently training for the Paralympics. She was a finalist for Miss Wheelchair USA, and she competes in Tough Mudders, most recently the world's toughest mudder. She once stated, "I stand for showing the paralyzed community that just because you get this injury, your life isn't over." Jesi is known for encouraging and inspiring others to live a full life. When you see her on social media, she's responding, she's helping, she's super involved. I want you to know where you can find Jesi. Jesi can be found on Instagram at Stracham820. That's spelled Stracham 820. Again, at her foundation, wheelwithmefoundation.org, and on Facebook, Jesi Stracham. And then she has her YouTube channel with her vlog series, her video series, and that's named after her, Jesi Stracham. So check it out. All right, those are the locations you can find Jesi. Just a quick note about the interview. There are some areas where the interview gets a little bit choppy because of cell phone reception. Jesi was traveling, but it still recovers. So just tune in, bear with. It's an awesome interview. I hope you enjoy. I'm going to stop rambling like I always do. And here's my interview with Jesi Stracham. Enjoy. Thanks. Hey, what's up, everybody? I am sitting here with Jesi Stracham. So I'm so excited to have Jesi on. Jesi is someone I've been watching for quite some time. That sounded creepy, but in a good way. You have an awesome story. That did sound creepy, though, when I said that. I managed to always take things to weird levels, but no, I've been watching your story, Jesi, for quite some time. I was saying to you before we started the interview that I'm kind of bummed. You hit a big road trip where you traveled out from Charlotte all the way to Vegas, where I'm at, and you did the 24-hour World Tough Mudder, right? It's 24-hour Tough Mudder.
Yeah. So I drove by myself from Charlotte, North Carolina, to Las Vegas, Nevada, to compete in World's Toughest Mudder, which was 24 hours. And it was part of a 3-part series for the Holy Grail, is what they called it. They called it the Quest to the Holy Grail. And it's where you compete in one overnight event, one timed event, and then World's Toughest Mudder. And so I am the first and only paraplegic athlete to get a Holy Grail. My whole goal is to pave the way for other adaptive athletes or wheelchair athletes in the Tough Mudder series, because they do have amputees, visually impaired. But as far as wheelchair athletes, it's not something that you really see often. And so I'm trying to get a standard in place so it's kind of the same across the board. I
don't think I've ever seen a wheelchair athlete at the World Tough Mudder ever. I can't remember.
There was 2 of us.
Okay, cool. I can't remember.
Tyson is the other one. He's actually a West Coast Tough Mudder competitor and I believe 10-time Legionnaire. So he's done 10 Tough Mudders. And Tyson's been around for a while. He just doesn't share it as much because it's more for personal for him, which, his road is incredible too. So to watch him go out there and to not be out there alone was an awesome experience. And I got to put his headband on at the end. Well, I'm bummed that I didn't get you in a in-person interview because, I was right around the corner, but I didn't know everything was going down when it did, and work and everything caught up with me, so I missed it. But bummer. But that's cool that you were able to take the road trip and experience Vegas. Did you get crazy in Vegas afterwards? Did you have fun? Oh gosh, no. I don't really get crazy.
Neither do I, ever.
I'm not too wild of a person.
Yeah, it's just whenever I don't know, my friends or anybody come into town to Vegas, it seems like they feel obligated.
They party a lot.
Yeah, they feel obligated. The locals don't, believe it or not. The locals here don't do any of that. It's kind of, I don't even remember the last time I went down to the Strip. It's been so long. Actually, I think it was after the shooting, we went down to the memorial, but that was it. So that was the last time.
It's overrated.
For sure. The whole city's overrated. It's not even a city though. It's really not. It's just it's like a tourist destination with a surrounding town that supports it. It's a weird place for sure. But
it really is.
Yeah, but it can be fun though. The neighborhoods are pretty tight knit. Everybody takes care of each other. But onto a lot of you. One thing that always, when I was looking at your story and so forth, you don't get much. There is stuff out there, but I was always curious. What was your life like prior to your accident? Where were you at? Were you in North Carolina then? And what was it like?
It feels like such a long time ago, but in January will only be 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was an orthodontic assistant. You know, I led a good life. I went to school. I was selfish and kind of lived for me. I was very self-centered, and I feel like I wasn't a good person. I don't really remember who that person was because she's so far gone. You know, I got paralyzed, and it just changed my whole perspective on everything. I mean, I broke my back in 2 places. My ribs punctured my lungs. I coded twice and was resuscitated. So I live every day just so grateful to be alive. And I keep that positive perspective. So that person that I was before, you know, she died when I died,
mm-hmm.
When my body died, I guess, essentially. And I don't view myself as a good person. I didn't before. And so now, obviously, I'm a different person. So I really can't tell you. I don't know who that person is anymore.
That's crazy. I mean, I get that though. I mean, such a dramatic event, and then the 2 different lives now. Now I was wondering, you said this is another one that I've been thinking about is, yeah, I know your story where you coded out twice, where you died twice technically on the table where you weren't there. Do you remember any of that? I have this weird fascination with like near death experiences. And I was wondering, do you remember any of that event or no?
Yeah. So funny. The day before my accident, I was actually saved. Mm-hmm. I took Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. And then I got into the accident, coded everything. And I actually saw my grandmother, and she told me it wasn't my time. And Whoa. She said that she couldn't come with me and I couldn't stay with her, and that I had things I had to do and people to get back to. But I couldn't stay. I had to go.
Yeah, I love those stories. I mean, I used to read them as a kid. I was that weird kid that like always wondered about existential
I'm totally
things.
The same way.
Yeah. And like, I love those stories. So they're kind of really cool. But I wondered for sure if you did. So
the unique thing about it is, like, I vaguely remember seeing my grandmother. I actually woke up and told my mom that, and then my mom looked at my dad and said she died, and he's like, "It's full of shit, Jackie," whatever. And
yeah.
So they moved on, and my dad was getting my medical records for my supplement insurance, and my mom said he came in spite of his feet and said, she did. You were right. She said, "I told you to tell my mother." She's not going to wake up and tell me that. And then, yeah, so I actually didn't fully, because my first week was such a blur in and out that I don't remember what was real and what wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really crazy. Like, I'll post a link on the podcast notes, actually probably on my website, linking to where you're describing your story, because I think it's pretty cool when people can visually see, you know, as you're describing it. But it was really, really dramatic for sure when you're describing dying there. You know, how, like, when you died, was it like a cardiac arrest or?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't, like I said, the last thing I remember, so I was on the back of a motorcycle and a woman made a U-turn into it. I remember seeing the woman not slowing down, and I'm thinking, man, that woman is coming in hot. We are going to impact. And I started hitting the driver of the bike, and he wasn't slowing down. So I just held on tighter and closed my eyes and tucked, and then woke up a week later in the hospital. You know, there's different stories. I actually got to meet the trauma doctor that brought me in, and he said I was just cussing him up and down, telling him I wasn't staying at that hospital, but he felt my back and felt the lump, and then all of a sudden I just coded on him. Like, you just kept going out. And then I actually got to meet the nurse earlier this year that was in the room to help resuscitate me, and she was surprised that I was alive. She's like, "You are nothing short of a miracle, girl."
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, to be impacted like that on a motorcycle and to survive, that's crazy that you remember the impact in such
that's
a way.
That's the last thing I remember. Yeah,
Dude.
it was just the sound of metal crunching, I think, will forever haunt me.
Yeah, for sure. Damn. Yeah, that's pretty dramatic. Weren't you, you were kind of an extreme sports person in a sense of like, you raced a lot. You raced ATVs, stuff like that prior to the accident too. Is that right? Or did that come afterwards?
Yeah. So the series that I raced in the Polaris Ace with Team UXC is actually the same series I raced on an ATV and was making the transition onto a dirt bike when I got hurt. I had a huge cut on my knee when I went to the hospital, and they had said, yeah, you got that in an accident. I said, no, I didn't. I got that from where I wadded up on my dirt bike earlier that day, because I actually got to ride my dirt bike the same day, which I'm forever grateful for, that I had, one last woods ride on my bike, normal, before my accident. So, I mean, I've been into extreme sports, but I feel like I got paralyzed, and it excelled that. I mean, I go for things that I think, what the heck am I thinking?
Yeah, I got that from you. Were you always this competitive, driven too? And if you is that the case though? I should end that question there because I got to follow up.
I mean, I've always been, of course, competitive. But again, I think with my paralysis, you lose one thing, other senses, other things are heightened. And I think my competitiveness has just gotten worse because I don't like to lose even more now.
Do you ever flip out? Like, I love that actually. That's a guilty pleasure of mine, is watching people kind of snap when they're competing. I admire that drive though.
Back to the Tough Mudder stuff, having a team and having to rely on a team to pull you through the course, because I complete every obstacle. That's not the issue. It's actually getting through the course in a wheelchair. And having to rely on others' fitness to get you through is really hard, because, you train your body a certain way, and you put a certain amount of effort, but you can't control what others do, but you're relying on those people. And so for me, it was really hard to be like, okay, Jesi, you're relying on others. This isn't you. You can't push at the pace that you want to go because this is not your legs working. These are other people helping you, and they've got to preserve their body. So it was really hard that I had to continuously remind myself that, other people aren't going to push as hard as I want to. Gotcha.
Yeah, that does make sense, especially the drive you had prior, or what you've always had in you, to have to rely on them. That's definitely tough. I've noticed, I should mention, actually, I'd love to dive into this real quick, is, not even real quick, but as long as you want, but you have a YouTube channel out. You have a series out called Wheel With Me. What got you into that? What made you, put yourself out there like that?
The feedback I got from putting my meltdown on the internet. So back in February, I posted a 7-minute meltdown, and this is when I first started my fitness journey this year and everything. So I still couldn't get myself up on water. It was right after my evaluation. The clinical trial, I had to go back the first 2 years to get retested. And every time I'd go back, I wouldn't get the news I'd want. So I'd get really sad. I'd go to the small depression. And so I had flipped over backwards. I'm in a hotel room by myself, and I'm like, I can't get back up. What the heck? And I was just so mad and so sick of people just not considering how I feel. And so I just went on a 7-minute rant, and it got feedback, but mostly positive, and it got like 40,000 views. And I was like, man, if something like this could have that impact, what about like me just doing my day-to-day life, like people just to see everything I do in a week. Let me just put it all into a video. And then my nonprofit's name is the Wheel With Me Foundation. I want people to wheel with me. And so I was like, why not wheel with me on my YouTube channel? So that's how that came about. And so I just decided, every week I'll just release new episodes. It's more for me than it is anyone else, because I love to, for me, just it's humbling to see everything that I do in a week. I'm like, wow, this is something I never would have done before. And so for me to continuously getting out of my comfort zone and putting myself out there, feedback, it just is an incredible feeling. It's irreplaceable. So that's why I kind of do it.
Yeah, I noticed the video got more than just 40. It was like 46,000 hits already. It was
and it continues to grow.
Yeah, the rant was awesome. It was great. I hope you go on more rants. I hope you just totally go off more. I think it. Yeah,
of course you love it.
Yeah, I did. I loved it. Well, I think it sparked a ton of conversation, and built a lot of awareness of what you're dealing with, spinal cord injury, and like you said, it's like, oh, we had an injury or whatever, and then from there, people ignore all the other stuff that comes with it. So it was definitely.
Well, for me, it was about being real. Like that's the one thing that I really I pride myself on, especially with this injury, and the social media is a great platform for it. But I don't, my life is incredible. It's amazing. There's no words to even describe that part of it. But the spinal cord injury itself is shitty, and there's no way around it at all. There's no sugarcoating that. The bowel bladder issues, thank goodness I don't have bowel issues like that. But that's why I want to stay open about it. I want to educate people, because there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, I had to go cath, or oh, I just peed myself. And new people that I'm spending time with, they're like, you peed yourself? What do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, I have to use a catheter pee. I lost control of that. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And so for all the people that don't know that, I'm like, wow, I could share this. I don't care. I have a brain injury too, so I'm like, it kind of remove that filter a little bit.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, I'll share everything with you guys. You want to know? Let me tell you.
Yeah, when I say that's awesome that you're brave like that, because that awareness. I think a lot of people probably feel alone going through similar situations, I guess I could say, and having you out there, just throwing it out there and saying, look, this is what's going on. And I noticed the response. That's one thing, is I notice a lot of responses. I want to get a statement from you. You get comments a lot to the extent I actually don't have to look up the specific statements I have in my notes, but they're always like, hey, my daughter just had this, or my child has this, or I'm going through this. And
I get inboxed that too
all the time on your pages and so forth. Do you get burnt out? Do you get burnt out hearing the stories and having to, or are you okay with it?
No, so especially Instagram, Facebook, and things like that. Like a lot of my inbox messages, I read everything I get. But if it's like words of encouragement or things like that, I won't reply unless they're asking for help. Of course, if someone's asking for help of, oh, I just had, my cousin just got injured or something like that, then of course, I'm going to give them what works for me, which my first thing I say is join support groups. That's the first thing I did sitting in that hospital bed, was join spinal cord injury support groups. And I think that's the best decision I made, because I had that support. And that's what I wanted to do, which is leading on to my next chapter, which is my nonprofit and building a transitional home to integrate these spinal cord injury patients back into an independent community. Because when I got hurt in 2015, the census was there was 12,500 new spinal cord injuries a year. Well, the census for this year is 17,500 new spinal cord injuries every year.
Wow.
Every year. That number has grown by 5,000 in 3 years.
What is it? What's making it happen more?
It's accidents, motor vehicle accidents.
Wow.
But it's probably honestly texting and driving. And for a different time, I'm all about food and natural eating. I eat organically and everything. And I think a lot of it is what they put into our food. The hormones they're pumping into our meats and everything, they're not giving our body the actual nutrients that it needs, and it's making our bones not as strong. That's personally my theory, but obviously there's no scientific anything to back that up. But the big issue is, so there's all these clinical trials and everything to cure spinal cord injury, but there is no known cure. We're not getting better. We're in a cumulative number. So yeah, that 17,500 new patients a year is a small number, but not in the grand scheme of things, because that just is piling up, and people don't really take that into consideration. And I feel like I look around and I'm not seeing these wheelchair users in public, and it's because they're not really taught how to live a full life. It's kind of like you get injured, and it's like, here's your wheelchair, go live your paralyzed life, good luck, but your life
cope
is
with
over.
It. Gotcha.
Right. That's how I felt that way when I got out of the hospital. I felt like don't get me wrong, my PTs were great and everything, but you still feel kind of shoved to the side. And had I had someone that went through the experience giving me the tools, which I did with support groups, then, I feel that I could make these patients be more successful in the independent world. So I want to help them get back in there.
That I wonder, like, I want to go back to another point where you said people aren't getting better. You were one of, I think, 5 now at this point, 5, maybe 10 people that had.
No, there's 17.
There's 17 now. Wow. Okay. But when you started, you were one of 2, right? When you had your.
I was the second patient, yes.
Wow.
So I'm the second patient in a clinical trial with a company called In Vivo Therapeutics. This trial is called Inspire. And they put what's called a neuroscaffold in my spinal cord to reconnect the disconnect. It looks like a cotton roll that you would see at the dentist's office. It's about the size of a grain of rice. And what they do is they cut where you damage your spinal cord, irrigate it out, put this in, sew it back up. It dissolves in 6 months. After the idea is it reconnects at least one nerve. Well, my one nerve did reconnect because I started as a T4 injury and then obviously went down to a T6. But that was at my 2-year evaluation. And then fast forward 2 months later, and I start getting more sensation. And then I went to a healer in Florida and started getting movement. And so now here we are in December, and I actually feel all the way down to my feet.
Oh, wow.
It's not like normal. It's very numb, the way your mouth feels at the dentist.
Yeah, I've had nerve damage. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but I feel that. I feel it. And then hot and cold. Heat feels almost like a dense fog, like in scary movies, how it kind of creeps. That's how heat feels on my legs. And then cold feels like pins and needles, but I have that back, and it's amazing. Healing is painful, 100% painful. My pain level's a 10 every day.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it is the worst thing I've ever experienced. It's worse than getting paralyzed, like the actual paralysis itself. It feels like my bones are ripping through my skin, but I'm grateful for that feeling. You know, it's amazing to get this incredible experience of paralysis, this humbling and life-changing traumatic experience I would never take back. And then slowly I'm recovering from it. It's amazing.
Now, do you had a lot of people following you through the trials. I read an article and it was almost creepy. It was like creepy how like there was like medical reps and investors and stuff just following you, watching your progress and so forth. It was really odd how many people watched your trial, your clinical trial. I guess it would be for this scaffolding that was inserted. And did that like really bother you that all these people were just like sitting and waiting and expecting one way or the other?
Mean, I'm grateful for it because it's part of the reason I'm so open about my bladder stuff, because I would have these people messaging me when I first got hurt, asking me if I had improvements in down bladder control.
Damn.
Private messaging me.
That's
because
so
I decided
nuts.
to be so open about it. Yeah. And, now I'm actually an investor in the company. I did invest some of my retirement because I do believe in it. So I'm actually in the investors group, and I share my web series in there every week. You know, those are the good ones. Those are the ones that don't ask me about personal stuff, but encourage it when I share it. They like to see that. So I still share stuff with them, but it's not as bad now. And like I said, at first it was just brutal.
So that's like hopeful though for others going through like a spinal cord injury, is that the fact that you're willing to invest your money into it, and you're one of the subjects that says that you think it was there's been positive impacts from it.
Yeah, I totally think that I've personally had, like I said, positive impacts. I think 8 of the 17 patients have went from complete to incomplete in the first 30 days, I believe. I know patient 1 and patient 3 did. I didn't. I was still considered a complete injury at the beginning of this year, but since I haven't been reevaluated, I believe that's changed as well. And I think just any amount that we can get back, you can capitalize on that. And as long as you just don't give up hope and continue working. I mean, our mind is such a powerful thing. And again, I think it's a numerous amount of things I've done. You know, at the beginning of this year, I read a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and it is the most incredible book I've read. Life-changing, for sure.
I'm taking notes right now.
I'm telling you, it will give you the tools of it teaches you really what to care about and what not to care about. And like what's really important, and it strips everything else away, like the materialistic, and it really gets you back to your core values of what's important in life. And that's what I needed. So I did that. I started doing CrossFit with a group in Charlotte called Project Momentum. It's actually Amanda Clue is who runs it, and she has cerebral palsy. And she actually got off of a walker by starting CrossFit a couple years ago. So she wanted to start something in Charlotte for other disabled athletes. So I do that. I changed my diet, and I went to Ken Barnett, which is a healer in Florida, and I started a supplement with a company called Relive. It's called Lunison. It's like from soy. It supports aggressive cell regrowth. And I think with those key things is when I started seeing some impressive recovery that I really never thought I was going to walk again up until that point of April this year. If you would have asked me this time last year, Jesse, are you going to walk again? I would have told you no.
Yeah.
But now you ask me, like, I totally think I will. I know it will probably never be the same that I did before, and I'm completely cool with that.
I actually
really
believe you will too.
More than anything.
I usually don't make judgment calls like this, but I totally believe you will too. I don't just to drive alone, and then you're doing experimental procedures and so forth. And the way science is going, it's for injuries like yours, I think it's one of the first that we'll start to see the dramatic turnaround once we fully realize some of the trials out there. I'm a junkie for NIH research, and it just seems like there's a lot of promise ahead. So,
and just to see where spinal cord injuries have come just in the last 10 years alone, what's available now to what was available then, it's amazing to see the advancements and how much further it's going to continue to advance. 8 years from now, the next step in this trial that I'm in is stem cells. I don't know when that will be because the trial is actually paused right now because they had a total of 3 patients die. 2 of them were definite trauma, but the third one, the family wouldn't let them do an autopsy, so the FDA paused the trial.
Yeah, stem cells have gotten a bad knock lately in the States, that is.
Right. So, that's with everything, though. With the FDA, they're so controlling over it, and they make it so hard to get approval to get these things going. So that's why it kind of adds hurdles in finding a cure.
It's pretty frustrating for sure, especially when it comes to vaccines and other stuff, to see how many human trials are required. Instead of, rolling it out for those, I mean, when desperate times call for experimenting, they should lighten up a little bit for sure. I wanted to make sure that we got your foundation wheel with me, this foundation that you've been involved in for, I guess, since the start, right? You're the one that started it. Is that correct?
Right. So I'm the co-founder myself in a lifestyle clothing company out of Yuma, Arizona. Justified Cultures. Mm-hmm. They started with them supporting me with racing, and then it turned into all adaptive sports. And then they let me create my own line. So I actually have shirts with a logo on it, and all the proceeds go to the nonprofit. And I was like, I just want to help spinal cord injury patients. And we looked around. I couldn't find a nonprofit that really had the same mission as I, because there's not one. And so I was like, Dundee from Justified Culture, she said, well, why don't we just create one? And so I was like, oh my gosh, really? And so she helped me get it started, and together we created the Wheel With Me Foundation, dedicated to integrating spinal cord injury patients back into an independent community.
Nice. And then your mission is to build this transitional housing, right? Where it's going to be more adapted towards those in chairs. Maybe it doesn't have to be just chairs,
but not be. It's going to be adapted, and this is the reason why. Mm-hmm. So we don't have these adaptations in the real world. The real world is set up for walkers. It's not set up for us. So my goal is to build a transitional trailer for manufactured homes. Because manufactured homes, you can put a ramp and a shower chair and get by.
Yeah.
And that's how these people, you get a spinal cord injury, you don't typically have the money to outfit your whole house to make it wheelchair accessible or ADA wheelchair accessible. It's not something that you can do.
Yeah. Especially the older homes, right?
Yeah, it's so costly. I say, get a manufactured home, throw a shower chair in there, and you're going to learn how to live in something that's not set up for you, but you're adapting. essentially. We adapt and overcome.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And I'm a huge fan of minimalism, for instance. And you see a lot of these mini homes that for sure they could be outfitted to be more accessible and way less money than what we see nowadays, especially in today's housing market where we may, where houses are extremely expensive again. And these mini homes, they serve a good purpose, not just sustainability, but also being able to be modified a lot easier. That's an awesome idea, by the way. Now, with your foundation, I feel like you guys have t-shirts and swag, all kinds of good stuff on there too. Can people go there to buy stuff to support you guys?
Yeah, so our website's currently under construction. I think it's still viewable. It's wheelwithmefoundation.org. Mm-hmm. And the store, whenever you click the store, in the store actually will just it will send you on over to Justify Culture's page, which on their entire store. Mm-hmm. So that's all their clothing, not only the Wheel With Me stuff. And then they split off whatever the Wheel With Me was. They donate that, of course, to the nonprofit. But yeah, so you get a discount code for all their clothes. Nice.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Now, I came across a bio about you online, and it says,
"Oh gosh,
no, it's a good one. It's just a profound statement. It states that you spend time helping others that have spinal cord injury patients that have gone through that, and showing them that living life isn't as difficult as you would think." And you've said that in the interview, and you add to the statement, "We have more opportunity being in a chair than we do walking." Can you explain that a little bit?
Oh yeah, 100%. The adaptive sports that are available to us. Because we're in wheelchairs, we're a smaller population. So I would say, it's not as competitive. It's still competitive, but it's not as competitive to be great at sports in the adaptive sports world, especially all the new ones. We have CrossFit is just getting started. Mm-hmm. The Tough Mudder side of things, like in the fitness side of things are just starting to grow and become more popular among adaptive athletes. And then in addition to that, we have all these foundations made by, of course, other wheelchair users to get us the equipment we need to go out and be able to do these sports. That's not something that's available to you when you're walking. I feel like the wheelchair makes it a lot easier to get the things that you want to do. It's all about using it to your advantage. It's all perspective, and that's the biggest thing that, that's why I want to build a transitional house again. It's not only just to give them the tools to be physically ready, it's the tools to give them. It's all perspective with this injury. It's traumatic. It's hard. For me, it's no different than a breakup. Like my legs and I kind of broke up, and I got to get over it and still move on because life continues on after the fact. And it's getting people into that mental mindset about it.
How did you get into that mental mindset? How did you reframe a situation so traumatic into turning a lot of, finding a lot of positives?
I just had to look at it like it was a breakup for me. To me, the whole inspiration thing, you're so inspiring. Mm-hmm. Like, thanks. Call me inspiring when I'm doing something inspiring. Like going out and getting gas is not really inspiring. I've been told I'm inspiration for getting gas before. And so for me, it was like, I just need to have to get over it and move on. That's the way I looked at it. You can't change it.
All right. So we kind of lost you right where you were saying how, you had more opportunities and so forth, being in a chair. And then you went into how you, reframed your mind in a way to accept what happened and to move forward. A lot of people can't do that. Do you find that? It's not just a spinal cord injury. A lot of people can't do that over losing a child, over something else tragic in their life. Do you find that a lot of people aren't as resilient?
Honestly, I get so frustrated with able bodies when they get so mad over the stupidest things. And I'm like, why are you even mad about that? Like, is it going to matter in a couple hours? No. Is it going to matter tomorrow? No. So there's no reason to get upset. So I see that all the time. And it's very frustrating for me because I'm like, there's so much more to life than getting upset over this petty, meaningless crap. And if people really took a second to actually think deeper into it, then they wouldn't be. They'd be like, oh, why am I upset anyways? And then it would change things around. It's all mindset.
Yeah, totally. So you're all over the place, from Tough Mudder Live, Destination Polaris, to the Today Show, amongst so many more media outlets. What is it that makes you so attractive to everybody to hear your story and to listen to you and so forth? Why do you think everybody wants to talk to you? Because there's many people, there's 17,000 people, like you stated, that go through a similar spinal cord injury for whatever it is in different extents. What makes you, what do you think makes it your story? Not necessarily your story, but who you are. I'm
not afraid to reach out to them. So a lot of those media outlets I've reached out to, any update that Today Show's done on me, it's because I've wanted to put an update out there and give it to them. I reach out to as many, especially when I'm doing an event, as much media as possible, because it just helps to promote the nonprofit, and the more donors I can get for the nonprofit, the more chance I have of getting this off the ground quicker. My goal is to be up and running by next year. And so to get that going, I've really got to have a ton of traction. And I knew that I wanted to do something. The more that I got out there and got visible, the easier it would be when that time came.
But for me, I went out of my way. I mean, I went out of my way to reach out to you because of your story. You may reach out to others, but we're coming to you too. We're coming after you.
And I appreciate that so much. Just the opportunity to share my story. If I can touch as many people as possible, that's the whole goal, and get people living life to the absolute fullest. And there's no reason, injury or no injury, for anyone to not go after what they want and live their life the way they want to live it.
Now, I've got a question for you too that came earlier in the interview. You talked about how you deal with so much pain. It's on a level 10 now that things are starting to reactivate in some areas. How do you treat pain? Like, I feel like I may have come across a comment where you might utilize CBD or something like that. Is that effective?
Yes, it is the only thing that is effective. I do not take any pharmaceuticals. I stay away from those as much as possible. CBD, you can get at any vape shop as long as you're over the age of 18, and it's across the whole entire country. And I just go in and I just take a drop of it under my tongue, and it just smooths the pain away. And I go on about my day, especially, as much as I do. Another thing that helps with the pain, obviously, is stretching, sanding, and getting in my brace. I get my braces and walk. So there's a lot that people don't see behind the scenes. I do therapy almost daily on my legs because obviously I don't want to lose any strength I've gotten, and I want to continue to build it and move forward. So I don't, insurance doesn't cover physical therapy. So I do that all at home.
Now, where you're at in North Carolina, do they allow THC CBD, or is it just CBD only?
THC is not allowed. You can get CBD anywhere, and that's a big struggle I've ran into, especially with the adaptive sports and being an elite competitive athlete. With the THC not having a prescription for it, it puts up a lot of roadblocks. You become a liability because it's not prescribed by a doctor. And it makes a lot of things difficult. And, that's the fight that we're going against, just because I don't want to poison my body, my kidneys with this. I have chronic pain, and to use pharmaceuticals for a long extended period of time, I don't feel that they're meant for that. Yeah, so I found something that's a natural alternative, essentially.
Yeah, it seems like there's a good response with using more of the CBD, cannabis-based, and other stuff than, like you said, in the pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceuticals issues are immense already. So,
right, and the pharmaceuticals don't really touch my pain the way the cannabis, CBD, any of it. Like, the pharmaceutical does not touch it the way it does. I have a lump on my lower. So I touched earlier about meeting the nurse that was in the room to resuscitate me. That's because I was in the emergency room for lower back pain, because I thought I re-broke my lower back in the lumbar area because I have a lump that is, you can see it. And I've gotten MRI since, and they said it's muscle irritation due to new sensation.
Whoa.
And that is what causes me the most pain, is that area. I have no hardware near there or anything. I mean, mind you, I'm fused from T2 to L2, but this is down like L4, L5, down almost into the sacral area is where this lump is from the muscle irritation. And I feel it. It is terrible.
Yeah.
And like I said, it feels like my skin is just ripping apart.
But you have had some, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. But I hope that, you know, that the CBD and everything is giving you some relief, you know, like you're saying. So hopefully.
Right. And, you know, the sooner that it's nationwide medicinally legal, that will make life 10 times easier for everything else. Like, again, that's the biggest fight. It took a while before I didn't feel like a drug user because of it, and to be okay saying it, that, you know, I use cannabis, use CBD rather than pharmaceuticals because it wasn't prescribed by a doctor, and that's the status quo. You know, we're meant to think that because the doctor prescribes it, it's okay, but not, you know, not for an extended period of time. Taking Percocet for my entire life would not be something that would be good on my body.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's a crazy system right now. Hopefully it changes. It is changing in some states, but come on. It's wild to think that a Percocet is better than cannabis. But
I will say the one thing about the West Coast, you know, they're very, very open-minded. We see all these states becoming rec legal, between Oregon, you know, Washington, Colorado, the long-time one, California, you know, Arizona, Texas, they're both medicinally legal.
Nevada's recreational. Yeah, Nevada's recreational.
Yeah, so. Vegas, yeah, that too, you know. And so to see all these states on the West Coast, like most of the West Coast is medicinally legal. And you don't see that as much here on the East Coast. Yeah, Ohio is, Pennsylvania, like the North. But if you start getting to the South, the Bible Belt, it's hard. It's hard to get those people to change their mind. Just like someone that's been in a wheelchair for 30 years, there's a good chance they're never going to change what catheter they use. They've been using that for 30 years, and that's what works for them.
Yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
It's the same idea as for the cannabis. Medicinally, you have the older generation are saying, that's a drug. It's always been a drug and always will be. And so it's trying to get people to see the other ends of it, and that there is medicinal purposes for it.
Yeah, it's shocking that it hasn't been accepted nationwide just based on seizure treatment alone, and the results, but
right.
And anxiety treatment, OCD treatment, amongst so much more, you know, but it sucks.
Yeah, and what it does for an economy. I mean, it's unbelievable. You go to Seattle, you go to Denver, Vegas even is going to be seeing it even more, and Vegas being a touristy place, that's going to just add to it. You know, the economies in these places is just booming because they have this market. They have the grow ops, the dispensaries. You know, you're creating jobs, and it's giving back to the economy. You know, it's what the government really should look at to turn our economy around. It could do it. It really could, to go nationwide. You know, at least medicinally legal with it.
Yeah, there's a recreational place right next to my favorite taco joint, and it sounds so stupid, but like it might be the most chilled out, nicest crowd of customers ever. And so, I mean, that's a stereotype in a way, but like it's true. I mean, it's not like what it was perceived for so many years prior, and the health benefits are huge. It's just a shame that it hasn't hit certain states. North Carolina's a probably a pretty tough state to get through right now. Same with like South Carolina and those areas. But yeah.
Right. And in addition to that, you know, not only like the economy, what it would do for our heroin epidemic on the East Coast, especially, we have a heroin epidemic for sure. You know, they're keeping Narcan on ambulances now to bring these people back in the streets from overdose. I mean, heroin stems from opiates. So it's like people aren't looking at that side of it either. You know, there's a bigger problem out here that we can address with a plant.
But I'm glad that something's working. You know what I mean? Something's working better than the pharmaceutical stuff that definitely does hurt your body a lot more. So I got a question about that though. Do you worry about your future? Like do you look down the road 5 years or 10 years and worry, or do you look with optimism?
it's hit or miss. There's a lot. Like, there's so much. I mean, between trying to build something from the ground up that essentially has never been done before with a transitional house. The constant fight of with the cannabis and is it okay? Things have been threatened to be taken away because I am a liability essentially. And so that's a little frustrating because I don't have a prescription from a doctor. It doesn't make it okay. So it's a hard thing for me to focus on. But on top of that, my body already feels like a 90-year-old woman. Mm-hmm. Like, how am I going to feel in 10 years? It hurts. I'm in pain. I'm in a lot of pain constantly. And it's scary. It's scary to think about where I'm going to be. I'm optimistic because of the medical advances in technology. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, I'm 25 and I feel this way. I've been paralyzed 3 years. Well, how much worse can this get?
Yeah, I get that. And now, what do you do? Anything like? Do you do any like mind training, like meditation, anything like that to kind of keep yourself present?
Oh yeah, I meditate. I tap. I do Reiki.
Tapping sounds awesome.
Tapping is incredible.
Yeah,
it's you hit some things that you don't even realize you're holding on to for sure. And then reading is a big one. So for me, I read as much personal development as I can. You're a Badass was one of them I read earlier this year, again with the other one, The Subtle Art, and The Art of Negotiating. That was another one that I just read.
List
of course,
these?
I don't really read
Do you
it.
list these on your website?
I should. I really should. I listen to Audible. I don't actually read because I'm driving a lot. So I was like, instead of music, let me be productive with my time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I downloaded Audible, and you get so much from it. I think that's one of the biggest keys is personal development, and people don't take enough time into training on that and focusing on that.
I think you can really learn a lot about a person by what they enjoyed, like what they really grasped onto book wise and so forth. And so like hearing your books, like the first one that you said in the interview, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Yeah, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I think that one is like the title alone says something about you. You know what I mean? That you enjoyed it, and that's awesome. But I would love to see. I think a lot of times, especially the folks I'm interviewing, it would be really cool if they just had like a tab on their webpage, because generally everybody has a webpage that says what I'm reading and what I've read. And it helps. Other folks that are going through stuff, they'll lean on those books too. So
I'll have to add that tab on there.
Yeah, for sure. And of course I'll list them in the notes here too for the show. But yeah, for me it seems like for people scared of the future, it seems like meditation's a big help, getting back to the present moment and so forth. So what do you do?
It really is. It can put you in that other mindset.
Yeah. So what's like a daily grind for you nowadays? Like you're in North Carolina, usually right now you're traveling to Morgantown, West Virginia, unfortunately, because I hate the Mountaineers. I'm kidding. I don't hate the mountain. I just went to Pitt, and there's like a lot of, it's just separated by like 90 minutes, and there's animosity. Like half our high school went there, or Pitt, and Penn State was like divided between those schools, but like the big majority seem to go down to WVU. But so you travel a lot and do a bunch of crazy stuff, speaking and so forth. Is that pretty much your daily grind, is traveling?
So I work for a catheter supply company that is spinal cord injury owned and operated, called Wheeler's Medical Supply. I handle all the social media,
mm-hmm.
but so I do that. Usually I wake up and I do all social media stuff, and then I'll do my therapy. I go to the gym. I go to CrossFit, of course. Meal prepping. I do that on Mondays. Every day is so different. I mean, it varies from week to week.
Yeah.
That is why part of the reason I started the web series, because I do so much, and every day is so different. I was like, people should really see this and see all the things that, they could actually do.
Yeah, I think so. Now, I also have this question. I'm looking at it right now, and I don't want it to escape me while I'm here. So you had this traumatic injury and a whole new life. What's the best thing that this has brought you? All this adversity, what has it brought you? The best thing you can think of.
One.
Actually, no, you can go as long as you want.
Oh, gosh. I don't even know where to start. Of course, my faith, I can never take that back. It's made me humble. And in addition to that, the people it's put into my life, I've met some of the most amazing people you could ever imagine, including, my closest wheel friends. It's put all these wheel friends into my life. It's opened this unimaginable world that I never would have saw. We go through our day walking around blind to what else is around us. And so to see this whole other world of, wow, there's a lot more to life. It's just given me, there's so much that I just can't, it's irreplaceable. I can't put into words what it's done for me personally as a human being and the growth that it's given me.
When you look back on the situation, does it still give you, or did it give you nightmares, or now do you look back and say, this is, maybe where I'm supposed to be?
I had night terrors from the actual accident, the impact and everything for a while. They're not as bad now. Typically, like around my injury date, I'll get them again. But other than that, I feel that this is 100% where I'm supposed to be, the battle I'm supposed to be going through. And it's all a lesson at the end of the day. And it's one that I'm pretty grateful for. And I needed it. I went around a big-headed, stuck-up, selfish brat that is used to getting her way. And, now people tell me no, and I got my legs taken away, and I learned how to live again. And I was reborn essentially. And there's not a day that goes by that, even on my worst days, I'm still grateful.
Now, what has this all taught you about life? Like existentially speaking, what has this taught you about life?
Don't sweat the small things.
Yeah.
100%. The biggest thing that it's given, that's like my life motto. It's now I don't get upset about, that person that pulled out in front of me, and like I don't even get mad. I'm like, oh, obviously, you needed it worse than I did.
No,
but
like, can you give an example of something that irritates you that people? I like where you have gone off once or two on social media, so I don't know if you have anything fresh.
Did you see the comment that the guy left on my YouTube?
No, I didn't. What was it?
He says that he told me I was an idiot for complaining about things, and I was a hypocrite. I'm about to go through a tunnel, so I might lose you. So he told me that I was a hypocrite and that I was complaining about things that didn't even matter, and that I was complaining about things that able-bodied people do, but I'm no better than they are. And just told me like I was a terrible person. And then other people came to my defense, and he's like, well, I'm in a wheelchair too. I have been for all these years. And it's like, oh, so it's jealousy. Oh, he's like, congratulations on using the wheelchair and the fact that you're a pretty girl to get all these brand endorsements and everything. Hats off to you, or something. Like, he was just being very rude and mean.
I think that's just, you're going to encounter that wheelchair and no wheelchair. There's always like hateful, mean, mean people out there. And then
the other thing is, devotees, the sexual predators for people in wheelchairs. That bothers me. Like, I've had to change my number because of it, because I had someone call me. And what they'll do is they call you, and they're just attracted to, it's like no different than me being attracted to somebody that skateboards. That's just their type of person that they're attracted to, is somebody in a wheelchair. They like the way the atrophied legs look, or even more. They like, they like that they depend on somebody for the higher level ones. And it's kind of terrifying, because you're constantly scanning your friends list to make sure that they're not in there. And
ooh, that's creepy.
To make sure. Yeah. And, I had a guy call me, and he's like, oh, I'd love to watch you. There's nothing sexier than watching you struggle to get off the floor on your YouTube channel. And,
Jesus.
He wanted to suck on my toes and rub on my atrophied legs, and then proceeded to tell me where I lived. And I was like, whoa, like that's terrifying.
Yeah.
So they're really, that's kind of the biggest downfall I have, that, and, you know, peeing myself, which is for me, like the worst thing that happens in my day. And I think the reason I can stay so positive is because the worst thing that happens in a day to me is that I pee myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that's my biggest worry in a day, what the heck do I have to worry about? I can change. Like, I lost enough weight this year. I lost 15 pounds since the beginning of the year. So I no longer fit into pens. They're saggy and they leak. So I wear children's pull-ups now, and they have designs. And I'm pretty pumped on it.
Yeah, no, but that, like you said,
but the sexual powder, so they some of them, they get off on the fact that we pee ourselves, or the fact that, you know, we can't control that. Like, some of them, they like that, and it's so disgusting. And so you get them in your inbox, and you're like, what is wrong with you people? Like, go away.
I think there's a lot wrong with them. You know what I mean? It's like, it's super creepy. They want someone to depend on them that doesn't have the free, you know, like, I don't know. It's really weird.
And then some of them, they even go further, so they want to be paralyzed.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I've heard it. It's not like this is something I haven't heard of. I've heard of it, and it's pretty crazy, pretty creepy. Listeners will.
But a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say most of the listeners here wouldn't know that there's this like whole other side where there's these predators that are kind of floating around and doing that and obsessing over your channels and other stuff. It's kind of freaking scary. It is. It is. Oof.
But, you know, there is a negative in every positive. The biggest positive, like, this is given to me, it's taught me another thing is how to laugh at myself. One of the worst things that happened to me when it was like my first year of being injured. I was cooking breakfast and I had a UTI. And so when I get UTIs, my legs aggressively spasm.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no pants on because I kept peeing myself, and I was like, screw this. And at the time I was newly injured. I refused to wear a diaper. And so I was like, just peeing all over myself, frustrated, whatever. I'm making egg whites. I have uncooked egg whites on my lap. Legs spasm straight out. I flip over backwards. My egg whites go flying. The bowl breaks. I have uncooked egg whites all over the kitchen. No pants on my back. Can't get back in my wheelchair. Go to grab my phone. Well, I turn the burner off first. Go to grab my phone. Phone's dead. So I drag myself to the front door, and I start yelling out the front door, help, help me. And the neighbors happen to be walking up the road, and they see me, and they come running up our driveway. She's like, oh my gosh. So then her and her husband come to get me up off the floor. So they come to the door, and right as her husband goes to pick me up, I pee all over the floor.
Oh.
And the thing is, like, I still had no pants on.
So it was everywhere. Yeah.
So that was like, now I laugh about it, and that's my favorite, like, paralyzed story, because it's huge for me mentally to see how far I've come. But it was just, I'll never forget that I peed all over that floor when he tried to pick me up, and it smelled bad, and I was just like so frustrated. And that was like, that's my typically my low points, is when I pee myself constantly, just back to back to back. You just get so frustrated, and especially when you have to start changing, and it makes life inconvenient. Paralysis is an inconvenience.
Yeah, I love your review. You essentially approached it like a Google review, and you gave it. I think
my Google review.
Didn't you give it like 3 stars out of 5 or something? That was, I think the best touch was just the stars were even there.
Yeah, I got 3 out of 5 stars because it's not that bad. You know, if my biggest worry was not walking, paralysis would be a cakewalk. Like, it would be nothing. It'd be a piece of cake. But because you add in the bowel bladder, which even now, regaining sensation, because I didn't have control of my bowels, now I have to be careful when I transfer, when I do anything, because if I push too hard, I don't realize it, and I'm letting go of that, and then essentially I have an accident that way, which that's an even worse accident to try and clean up.
Yeah. That's so funny, though. That review, you had a ton of comments on that, and I thought it was really good. So,
thank you.
Yeah, definitely relink it again, bump it so people can see it. really funny for
How
sure.
do I do that?
For me, I always just copy and paste again. If I can't, Instagram lets you bump. You can actually bump with Instagram, but I don't know if you only have it on Facebook, I think. So just a copy repost.
No, it's on Instagram too. I just have to go back down.
Yeah, you can do a repost on Instagram, on your own post, I believe. And at least I have a app that can. So, I'm an Apple user, so I don't know if it's different than, I'm too lazy to try
something
something
I'm an
else.
Apple user too.
Yeah, I'm too lazy to switch it up. I'm tied into their universe forever, it seems like. So,
I know. I have a MacBook. I have everything. I'm right
Yeah.
there with you.
Yeah, and now like sometimes I wish I wasn't tied into it. I've been using Apple for like a lot of years, but oh well. There goes my rant on Apple. But yeah, and so
Hey, they're the only ones that have a tracker that tracks wheelchair pushes rather than steps.
are you serious? What's that?
I've been trying to get Fitbit in on that, but
Yeah.
they're just not. They're not with the program there, but because I use a Fitbit because I track all my food, everything on there.
Mhm.
But Apple's the only one on the market with a watch that tracks pushes rather than steps.
Speaking of pushes and tracking, you travel, like we talked about you traveling, and you travel alone a lot. How complicated is it traveling alone?
It's not.
Nice.
Like the biggest thing for me is worrying that someone's going to try to kidnap me, which last year my parents got me classes to get my concealed to carry permit, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. If they try to kidnap me, they're going to get some lead.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a good idea. I mean, being that you're out there so much, and like you said, there's creepy dudes everywhere for sure.
I'm scared that I'm being stalked. I think that is why I stay on the move so much, because good luck keeping up with me.
Oh yeah, that's like a nightmare if you think about it. Just like a stalker just following. Yeah, no, I don't even want to dive into it because I'm scared I'll jinx or something. It's so like,
right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, there's so many creeps out there. But yeah, that's nuts. Now, and so like when you're traveling, what I've noticed is that, at least I've seen your videos and so forth, is when you're traveling, you seem to, you seem to be pretty comfortable.
The worst thing for me is I really need a camper because I miss my dog. My dog is she's my child. And, so that's the hardest thing for me. Of course, my family, my mom always gives I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah.
So that for me is hard. But other than that, I'm like, I enjoy it. I'm having a good time. I'm out there. I'm in an all women's wheelchair support group, and I've met 12 of those women out of that group this year alone.
Do you,
two of which I've gotten, they're my closest friends.
Do you road trip to them?
Yeah. And like, Arizona, when I was in Arizona, I road trip to Laura.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll be in Florida actually next week staying with Ashley. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like there's a tight relationship in the wheelchair community. I've noticed where, you guys build your wheel friends, as you call it, and which is awesome. A really good group. Now, here's a question for you. What does the future hold for you?
Oh, like, what do you mean, long-term goals? Or...
Yeah, what are your plans now? I know you're working with the foundation, and it seems like you're getting more competitive, more like involved into CrossFit, especially. What are your goals in general, though, moving forward?
Long-term, I really want to go compete in Wadapalooza next year for CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of training to do before then. Of course, I'm going to get my holy grail in Tough Mudder again.
Is Tough Mudder in Vegas again next year? Did they even announce it?
No. Thank you. We're actually moving to Atlanta next year, so I'm very, very excited about that. It's only a 4-hour drive instead of like days across the country.
Yeah, 2,000 miles.
Do it. Yeah, definitely. It definitely changes everything up for me. So definitely, world's toughest mudder. Definitely going to go, do the toughest mudder again. Working on the biggest thing is getting the transitional house actually built and get it off the ground functioning, get some patients in there. The reason being is a wheel friend that whenever I was in the hospital with, he is still in a nursing home. We've both been out of rehab it will be 3 years next year, or in a couple months. And he's been in the hospital since.
Wow. I'm wondering, is it okay if people continue to reach out to you? And if so, how can they reach out to you?
The best way, is private messages on Facebook, Instagram, or of course they can email. They can email Jesi at wheelersmedicalsupply.com, and that's the bestest way to contact me.
Yeah. Other ways that they can at least hear your story is on Instagram at Stracham 820, right? And then also Facebook.
Yep, Stracham 820.
Yep.
And then my YouTube's the same too. And I encourage everybody to like, share, subscribe always. For
sure. Yeah, your YouTube's great. So I'll definitely put all of this in the show notes and everything. But I really appreciate your time with us, and we'll follow up with you too to get more of your story. And check in with you. I really appreciate your time with us though.
I appreciate you reaching out and having me. Seriously, I mean, it's always my pleasure to be able to share and so maybe give someone some inspiration to go out and live their life a little fuller.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. All right, people, that's our episode. Big thanks to Jesi Stracham for sharing her story. Reminder, you can check out Jesi Stracham on Instagram, and that's spelled Stracham, and her Instagram is Stracham820. You can find her on her nonprofit site, wheelwithmefoundation.org, or you can find her on Facebook, Jesi Stracham, or on YouTube, which her YouTube channel is named after her, Jesi Stracham. You can, on Facebook or Instagram, I think she links up her YouTube channel with her video log going on, the vlogs, as the kids call them. And also you can find us at livingadaptive.com. Go there, people. Or also on Instagram, living_adaptive, or on Facebook, Living Adaptive. Also, if you get a chance, rate us on iTunes. That's our episode. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you next time.